Good evening. I'm attorney Stephen Leahy. This is time for today's tax talk. Today we're going to talk about foreclosures. There's a lot of forbearance, mortgage forbearance out there. The moratorium's coming to an end. So that's what we wanted to talk about today. So join us. So welcome back. Again, thank you so much for joining us today for today's tax talk. Very important issues that are happening in our society about these mortgage forbearance agreements that are out there. Lots of mortgage forbearance agreements. A lot of my clients have gotten them. I actually got into a mortgage forbearance agreement right at the beginning. I got out right away. It was supposed to be 3 months, right? Then they offered me 6 months. And then they went to, they didn't offer me because I got out right away, but I wanted to see how that worked. And right at the beginning, I called and I asked for a forbearance and they granted it to me. I didn't have to give them any more information. I was affected by COVID and that was enough. And that's what happened to a lot of people. I went out and I went on the radio often and told people, get into a mortgage forbearance agreement before it's too late. And so, again, we thought it was going to be 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Now it's pushing 18 months. And many people are still in these forbearance agreements and they're coming to an end. So then the question becomes, well, what do I do now? How can I get out of this forbearance? Because a forbearance simply means when I come out of the forbearance agreement, they want all that money up in one lump sum. So if it's 18 months and let's say my mortgage is $2,000 a month, well, that's $36,000. If I was in a forbearance agreement because I was having some trouble, well, I probably don't have $36,000 to hand over to my mortgage company. So then the question becomes, well, what can I do? And, foreclosure is always a scary thing. It is a scary thing. I know in the 2008, 2009, and after, I helped a lot of people in foreclosure. Things were bad. The property values were plummeting. One of the reasons why the property values were plummeting was because of the mortgage foreclosures, right? They kept pushing mortgage foreclosures, and as people went into foreclosures, more properties went online, and they were at auctions, and the values fell, and the mortgage companies took a lot of that in. And so I don't think they want that to happen again. And so we see stories. Let me go back to this. Let me show you that there's these stories out there about aided by moratorium, foreclosure filings are down 61%, but volume of seriously delinquent loans are high. And this is the forbearance agreements that we talked about. So there's a lot of people in forbearance, and so the delinquent loans, they're technically delinquent. Actually, technically not, because we have an agreement and two parties can always agree to push off that. But this is how they're counting them. They're counting them as these forbearance agreements. So they're down. Here's another story. Constrained by government COVID moratorium, U.S. foreclosure filings at a record low. Now, one of the 5 states that are the highest in the nation, one is Illinois. And so while the numbers are still down, we're not as down far as many of these other states. And while that's a problem, I still think we can avoid this. I've been one of the people that have been saying, hey, the moratorium's coming to an end, expect a lot of foreclosures. But I'm changing my mind on this. I'm starting to think, well, maybe there's other things that are going to happen that these mortgage companies kind of recognize that for going into forcing everybody into foreclosure might not be the best for society, but also for them. It's not best for them and their bottom line. So their bottom line would be to get people into a loan modification rather than take the loss on these mortgages. So I had a client today that we got a loan modification. A little bit different than I've seen in the past. That I've done a lot of loan modifications in the past. Generally, there's 4 areas, right? Well, they're actually looking to reduce my monthly payment. And the goal is, at least the goal used to be, was to get it down to about 30 to 33% of my gross income. And that's what I should dedicate towards my mortgage. And so that was always the target. And so the three things they would change, right? They would change my principal. So they would take what I owe, put it, if I'm behind, this is called arrears. If I'm behind, they would take the arrears, either add them to what my mortgage is, my principal balance due is, and then rework the mortgage with that number, that larger number, or take that arrearage and put it into a non-interest bearing account, and then don't use that number when they're calculating my new mortgage. So the one that we're talking about now, that I just had a client that was offered one, and she accepted it, was it did three things. First, it reduced her interest rate. She was at a 4.6% interest rate. It reduced it to 3%, 3.0%. She was in a 30-year loan. She was already in the 30-year loan for some years. What they did is they took it and they recalculated the monthly mortgage on a 40-year loan from now. So it's 40 years more. So they added 40 years to the loan, and then they calculated it that way. And so we had the mortgage. There's another great article here. So let me go back to this article. And this article talks about existing mortgage forbearance. Avoid foreclosure with these 5 tips. And I thought these were good tips. That's why I wanted to bring this up. The time to enroll in mortgage forbearance programs is ending. The president extended the foreclosure moratorium and mortgage payment forbearance enrollment window in February until June 30th, but now it's been through July 31st. But for many who enroll in the initial forbearance agreement, again, as I mentioned, it's 18. But I want to get to the 5 things that they recommend. Explain the first: refinance. One of the good things, different than what 2008, is many people couldn't refinance in 8, 9, 10, 11 because the value of the properties fell. And so you couldn't really refinance to pay the balance because the value wasn't there to refinance. So you couldn't get, generally you need an 80% loan, 80% of value. And if that 80% value isn't there to pay the balance of my existing loan, really can't refinance. And so that's what happened before. But the good thing now is the value of homes is going up. And so many people can refinance with the value of their home going up. Reinstatement. Now, again, reinstatement is simply just paying the mortgage forbearance, whatever's behind, and reinstating the loan. Using this method, homeowners simply pay back all of the missed payments. Once they repay the missed loan payments, they would resume regular mortgage payments. While this option is simpler, it's not financially feasible. And that's why we're talking about it. If everybody could turn around and just pay what's behind, then there'd be no issues, right? The third thing, repayment plan. And repayment plan, homeowners can pay an additional amount each month in addition to their regular mortgage. And so this is not really a loan modification as much as it technically is, because you're changing the terms of the mortgage, and that you're agreeing to take additional payments every month on a repayment plan. But so if I'm behind, maybe they'll accept it for 2 years or 3 years and adjust my mortgage. So in my example, if I'm $36,000 behind, and if I can go to 36 months, maybe they give me, if I just pay an extra $1,000. So now instead of paying $2,000 a month in my example, I'm going to pay $3,000 a month, and I'm going to do that for 3 years, and then they'll reinstate my mortgage. Could be done for people if their mortgage was reasonable before, and now they're back to work, and everybody's making, and you're making your previous wage, and you had $1,000 extra. You can do it that way. The fourth thing, flexible modification. If homeowners have been permanently impacted financially and will be unable to make their monthly payments, they can look at a loan modification plan similar to a refinance. The homeowner would add the missed payments to their principal balance and change the terms and mortgage rate of the entire loan. And that's what I already mentioned. I discussed that. Uh, the and so this is I think is the best option for most people is the loan modification. And then you'll have to go through a loan modification program. I got to say that the one that we just got, it was not that difficult. It wasn't as hard as some of those I've been through, but they do go through all your finances. They're going to ask you for bank statements. They're going to ask you for pay stubs. They're going to ask you for a hardship letter, things like this. And then they'll make a decision based on that information that you give them. So I've had other clients who tried to get a loan modification, and because their income was down, they couldn't get a loan modification because they couldn't show that they can make any payment. A lot in Illinois here, as you know, the more your interest or your taxes are very high, and so if you have to pay your taxes in full, they can't change that. Plus, you have to pay some of the mortgage principal back and with some interest. And so if my taxes are very high and my income has fallen to the point where I can barely pay the taxes, I'm probably not going to get a loan modification. That's not going to work for me. And then the fifth thing, COVID-19. Now this is an option I haven't really experienced. I haven't seen anybody get this, but it's a good option for to think about and try to push for with your mortgage company. Utilizing this option would allow homeowners to simply begin making their monthly mortgage payments like before, and making the missed amount due either at a maturity date of the loan or when the homeowner refinances. And this is what we were talking about. Sometimes there's a combination of this in the home modification, where they'll take what you're behind, the arrears, put them in a non-interest bearing account, and then rework your mortgage based on the principal without the arrears in it. So in this option, I just keep making my monthly mortgage payment. They don't change any of the terms except for whatever I'm behind now becomes an additional loan, and that I can't refinance without paying them back. And at the maturity, there'll be a lump sum due at the time of maturity. Now, many people, the maturity is 30 years away, or 25, or because I had a 30-year loan and maybe I'm 5 years in, maybe I'm 10 years in. That's still 20 years away. And so, but when this comes in and I've paid off everything, I still will owe the mortgage company everything on the loan. I still will owe this principal. And if I try to refinance, again, they'll want to be repaid, and that will jack up what I'm going to have to pay at the refinances. And this happened a lot with people who got a loan modification, again, in 08 and going forward, that they didn't realize that that amount is still there and due. Happened a lot with people with second mortgages also, and I'm representing some people now that their second mortgage company is coming after them to get paid from these that were dormant, these second mortgages that were dormant for a long time. And a lot of people believe that they were gone. I'm never going to have to pay it back, and that's just mistaken. Those liens, the second mortgage liens, they don't go away. And so as I pay down my mortgage principal and the value of my home goes up, more and more of these second mortgages have some equity in the home that they can go after, and that's happening a lot. So you have to take all this into consideration, right? So again, there are chances. Now, many people won't need any help to do this, and I understand that. And a lot of times the mortgage companies will offer it without any type of investigation. But most are going to ask for an investigation. They're going to ask to look at your income, your expenses, your assets, and see if they would agree to this loan modification or any of these other packages. So we do help people with this. If you're very good at keeping records and you're very good at following up and you're very good at research, then you probably can do this yourself. If you're not good at any of that, and if you have the time, right? So a lot of people don't have the time. They can do all these other things, but they don't have the time. So you have to have the time along with these other skills in order to do this yourself. It's obviously losing your home would be is very important, and you don't want that to happen. And so sometimes it makes sense to hire somebody. If you have some questions or anything about that, you should give me a call, 312-664-6649. Again, that number is 664-6649. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions. You can visit us on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. Now, remember, I would like you to like, share, or subscribe to this channel, or share it with a friend that you know that might need some help. Or if you found it interesting or informative, like it. And so that'll help us, reach more people and help more people out of this problem. So that's what we'd like to do. You know that this is all sponsored by the Law Office of Stephen Leahy and Open Tax Advocates. Open Tax Advocates helps business professionals solve IRS problems. If you're having an IRS problem, maybe you should get a copy of my book, Deal with Your IRS Problem Today. It's free. Go to freeirsbook.com. Sign up. I'll send you a copy. If you have any other questions, though, give us a call. Happy to help you any way that we can. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you here tomorrow. Thanks again for viewing, and we're out. We're supposed to be out. Out. There we go. Thank you.